Okay, everybody, I've decided to make this quick video of my little setup, my solar setup. As you can see, I have the Renogy MPPT solar charge controller, 20 amp. There's the meter, which I kind of like. It's got some cool features. I'm not really sure how great the accuracy is. But this is saying I've got about a 90% charge, even though the unit is flashing, which is supposed to mean that the batteries are full. As you can see, I have two VMAX charge tank 125 amp hour batteries for a total of 250. And there's my fuse line, of course. These two batteries are run together parallel. You'll have to excuse the mess. This is a temporary quick setup underneath my workbench. And just to have in case of an emergency, so I can have some backup power. But here's a real world test, because I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube. Oh, and also here's my Krieger 3000 watt inverter. I also, this is a modified wave, and I also have a pure sine wave from Xantec, or Xantec, yeah, I believe it is Xantec. That's also coming because I want to run that for my TV, computer, stereo equipment, etc., etc. So what I wanted to do today is a real world test. So what I have here is one of those little heaters, and it's a 750 watt and a 1500 watt. So I'm going to turn on the inverter, and there we're saying, so we're fully loaded at 14.1, okay, and this will tell us how many watts are being drawn or used. So I want to do a real test to see exactly how long this will stay running, just to give you a real world idea of how long a small ceramic heater at 750 watts will run. So let's turn it on and see what happens. There's the meter. As you can see, it's jumped up. Saying it's using about 500 watts. There we go, 700, 7 and change. The heater is on, so about 750. Oh, sorry about that, didn't mean to turn that off. Turn it back on, and as you can see, the voltage is dropped to 12.4, and on this meter it's saying the battery's at already 43%, 42, 41. Now, like I say, I don't know how accurate these are. I've heard complaints from people. The sun is still out right now on my 100 watt solar panel. It's pulling about, as you can see, 12.5 volts at about 1 amp. So this is saying 40%. Yeah, 16.2 volt. 12.4 with a 1.2 amp. This is saying 12.3. And even the battery meter, if you could see on this, is showing about halfway. So, I'm not really sure, but this is definitely very hot and running. So going to keep it running to see if we get to a point, because the meter here is definitely down to 40% of the batteries. 37 it says, yet this still says 12.3, which technically is still good. As you can see, it's pulling 700 watts. It's still at 12.3. Like I say, the panel is still in the sun, not directly, as you can see. $12.3, $12.4, and this is holding steady at $12.3. Now, the heater's been running for 5 minutes, basically, and it's definitely getting hot in my room that I'm in. But it's good to see how this is going to run something that draws a huge amount of power. And there's the battery. It just jumped back up to 41%. We're still at 12.3. So we haven't gone below that. 12.3 here. I'm saying 42%. So, like I say, I'm not really sure how accurate this meter unit is. But it's fairly accurate. So, still at 12.3. This is showing batteries at about 50% according to this battery meter. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Kind of hard to do. There you go. But it's still at 12.3. And this little guy is still running. And he's real hot, and that's only at the 750 setting. So we've been running it for about 7 minutes. Battery still holding at about 42% according to this. Panel is getting some power, not a lot, because it's around 2 p.m. and there is some cloud cover now. But I still want to keep this real world test going to show people how much power they're going to be able to utilize in an emergency situation with just two 125 amp hour batteries. I highly recommend these batteries. They're expensive, but well worth it. This, like I said, is the Krieger 3000 watt modified inverter, which is a really good unit. Of course, the Renogy or Renogy, depending upon how you want to say it, 20 amp MPPT charge controller. And then the little add-on meter unit that I think is fairly accurate. Like I say, the battery's holding at 41% now, so it seems to have leveled 41%. But notice the meter is still 12.3. Now, as far as I'm concerned, once it gets below 12.1, I would imagine that would be a sign that the battery is very low. This unit, I believe, also has a warning for a low, I guess, voltage, and we'll have to see. But like I say, it is holding steady at 12.3. This bad boy is still rocking away. You can't really see the heat element, but it is hot. It's at full blast at 750, and like I said, this is a simple, basic setup in my place under my workbench. And you'll have to excuse the messy wiring. I haven't done a permanent install. This is just a temporary to do a testing, because like I said, I've seen so many videos on YouTube. That's still holding steady. Like I was saying, I've seen so many videos on YouTube that either are just not misleading, but just not, you know, real world practical testing, or as I call it, you know, solar power 101 or solar power for dummies. Okay, I see a little activity. This is showing a little trickle. It's doing something. It's still 12.3, but it's holding steady. Okay, so this is over 10 minutes of use of this little 750 watt heater, which my workspace is, I would say, 8 feet by 10 feet, where I keep a lot of my tools and equipment. So it's very warm in the space. Now granted, it's a 70-degree day outside in New York, but I'm sitting here in shorts and no shirt, thank God, in front of this heater, because it's very hot now in here. And like I say, this is still holding steady at 12.3. So, again, the charger is holding, according to this, at around 42% is the battery. We've got 16. So, yeah, the panel is pretty much out of the sun. It's still getting some kind of charge, as you can see. You know, I figured it would just be a good thing for people to see what exactly you can do, what you can run. And this is a heavy load, as you see, almost 700. And this says 750, and then there's a 1500 watt setting. And this thing's on full blast high. And this thing is cranking. It's hot. It's very hot now. And we're still holding steady at 12.3. So, again, we'll go back to the meter. And it's holding steady at around 41%. Temperature seems fine, maybe 40%. You know, they say not to discharge these batteries below, you know, 50%, or even some people 80%. I think personally that is debatable. I work a lot with all types of lithium and deep cycle batteries. It's still holding around 40-41%. The charging unit is still lit up green, saying it's charging. Okay, and this is still holding steady at 12.3. So it's now almost 15 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut it off at 15 minutes. So we're at the 15-minute video mark, which is basically about 15 minutes. Because I started it maybe 30 seconds into the video. And what I'm going to do is shut it off now. So you're going to see now, right away, the voltage is jumping back up. Battery is jumping back up, 51% already. And it's barely in the sun. You can see. It's like I said, it's after 2 o'clock. I have a south-facing panel with slight tree coverage to the west. But it is getting a charge nonetheless because it's a very good solar panel from Renogy. We're back up to now 12.9. You can see that little battery guy. So I'm just going to unplug this. The wire, again, no warmth, no nothing. The Krieger unit, I'm very impressed with it. I would probably just stick with this if I didn't have some sensitive audio equipment that I want to run. But I'm very happy. Look, we're back up to 13. And the charger is back to about 55% on the battery. And again, like I said, it's after 2 p.m. New York. There's some clouds out there right now. There's a little high tree cover to the west. My panel gets most of its direct sunlight between, I'd say, 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. So I get a good 4-hour window. Once those leaves come off that tree, I'll probably get a 5-hour window. So I have actually really good sun. And I do have an additional panel. I'm just running it off of one panel. One 100-watt Renogy polycrystalline panel. My cables, as you see, running in are pretty thick. I like to keep them a certain thickness. Definitely makes a huge difference. I see some people with these chargers running like what looks like 14 gauge wire. To me, that's way too small. I would definitely recommend the wire that comes with the kit. And then these thicker ones are the ones going back to the battery. And then, as you can see, I have some 2 gauge, a 0 gauge, I'm sorry, as my jumper. It's a monster, and you can see it's good stuff. You know, don't cheap out on your wire because it makes a huge difference. You're going to lose a lot of power or capacity to deliver it if you cheap out. Make sure, as you can see, your connections are nice and tight. These are actually pretty good cables. I'm not mad at this company. I saw some people with some reviews saying that their cable was a little bit flimsy or not necessarily 0 gauge. This one is the one that came with the Krieger, which I truly believe is 0 gauge. This one here says 0 gauge. As you can see, it's upside down, but it feels a little bit smaller. So that may be 2 and this may be 0. But nonetheless, you definitely want to go with some thick stuff. And of course, the big fuse that comes with the Krieger inverter to the positive. Then, of course, I'm using 2 batteries. So that's the way I have it wired up. And as you can see, this is back to 13. This is showing 3/4 of a charge on the batteries. And according to this, like I said, I think this meter's a little suspect when it comes to gauging the ability to tell exactly how much power's in the battery. Because see, it's at 58. This I've noticed sometimes overnight, even if there's a full charge on the batteries, that it'll drop off just overnight without even being used to like 68%. But then once the sun hits the panels, literally within like 10 minutes, it goes from like 68 to like 98%. So I think the top end of the charge sensor, however it works, is just off. Like I said, I can scroll through again. See, I have 250 amp hours, and there we go. I have no load. 15.1 volt, 12.9, and it's putting out 0.4 amp. But it's saying that it's still charging, and it's up to 55%. And that's not even being up 56, not even being in direct light. So I want to end the video now as it goes up to 58%. And just to, you know, like I say, solar setup 101, solar for dummies, however you want to call it. Not that I'm calling you guys dumb or that I consider myself dumb, but I am definitely a newbie to this, and I decided that I just wanted to have some kind of backup system since I have all this glorious southern exposure where I live. With the winter coming, God forbid the power goes out, I can at least maintain myself within my apartment for basic necessities and anything that I might need to power or run. And that's about it. So feel free to comment, ask questions, make fun of my messy wiring setup. Like I said, it's temporary, and eventually I will have this all very nicely done once I set up my second solar panel. But for now, like I say, I'm just running it off of one Renogy polycrystalline 100 watt panel, two 125 amp hour VMAX charge tank AGM deep cycle, and they are phenomenal. And then of course the Krieger 3000 watt modified sine wave inverter, and of course the Renogy or Renogy, depending upon what you want to call it, 20 amp MPPT charge controller. All right, everybody. Like I said, we're as I close this out at about 58%, and looks like we're right back where we were.